we go.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Ventana. Welcome to my Premier League predictions for the 25-26 season. Before we start the predictions, it has to be caveated that the transfer window is still not closed. There's still 2 weeks left to go. So a couple of movers and shakers which might start between now and the end of the window. But I want to get my predictions in before the first game of the Premier League season, which kicks off tomorrow night. Liverpool at home to Bournemouth, the traditional Friday night start of the Premier League. So here we go. In bottom place on 20th, unfortunately, at the root of the table, I am going to go with Burnley. I think the promoted teams are all going to find it hard. I don't, however, have all three promoted teams to go straight back down. They've bought a couple of players like they did last time. They are the yo-yo club at the moment. I just don't think they've got enough pull or enough stars in the team to get them out of the relegation zone. In 19th place, I am going for Sunderland. I am obviously a Newcastle fan. They've made a couple of shrewd acquisitions. I think Granit Xhaka is going to be a smart buy. I see he's been given the captain's armband. Expect a couple of red cards, I think, from him this season. But yeah, Sunderland going to bounce straight back down. In 18th place, I do have Fulham. Bit of a strange summer window for Fulham. Not many people coming in. They might still do something between now and when the window closes. But I think Marco Silva, obviously a very good young manager, but I just don't see how they're going to improve. Everyone says you need to be improving every year. If anything, I think Fulham have gone backwards. William has left the club. I can't see where the goals are going to come from. So yeah, unfortunately, all Fulham fans, I think you're going down this season. So the promoted club in 17th, I think, is going to stay up, is Leeds United. A couple of shrewd acquisitions. They've got my favourite old Sean Longstaff going to be running that midfield. A great engine on him. I am slightly worried in terms of goals. I think last time they were in the Premier League, they had Rafinha getting most of the goals for them. But yeah, I think they're going to scrape through this season. West Ham. I think goals are going to be the problem for West Ham this season. They've sold Kudus to Tottenham. They do have Callum Wilson, again, an old Newcastle player. Can he stay fit and score goals for West Ham? Let's see. I think Kyle Walker-Peters is a good signing on a free from Southampton. But again, I think it's going to be a struggle for West Ham. Also slightly worried for Graham Potter. If the season doesn't start well, I can see the Hammers fans getting on his back early doors. But yeah, unfortunately, bottom half of the table for West Ham, 16th. In 15th, I think this is going to be the biggest drop for me this season, and that's Brentford. Brentford have had the guts ripped out of them, and the biggest one is going to be the loss of Thomas Frank. Brian Mbeumo has obviously gone to Man United. There's talk about Visa going to Newcastle as well. It's a whole new front line for them. Their new coach is actually a set-piece coach. I do feel for Keith Andrews. I think he might be the first manager sacking, which is going to be very un-Brentford-like. But yeah, I think Brentford are going to struggle for me this season, and I see them in 15th. In 14th position, I've got Wolves. They've lost a lot of good players. Ryan Nouri, obviously Matheus Cunha. Semedo's been released as well, which is slightly surprising. But they have got Jorgen Strand Larsen, who banged the goals in for them last season. Obviously, great connections in Portugal. I think Wolves will be absolutely fine and consolidate themselves as a Premier League club. In 13th, Crystal Palace. So this is going to be a big one, and it's purely down to the ongoings with Palace losing their appeal at CAS. You can see Mark Gahey leaving. If they can keep hold of Eze, I think they might be slightly higher than 13th, but I can't see that happening. I think Eze, at this stage of his career, I think he wants to get into that England squad for the World Cup. Gay is their captain, a great presence around the club. I can see him obviously going to Liverpool. There's rumours going on at the moment about that. But Gahey and Eze, that's a huge loss to Crystal Palace. I think Mateta will still get 15-ish goals for them. Obviously, winning the Community Shield has given them a bit of a boost, but unfortunately, I think this how they've been done over by UEFA and then obviously now by CAS is going to see them drop down the table significantly in this season. So a bit of a shame. I do like Palace. They do always bring some. They do have a reputation of bringing young players through. So I'm looking forward to see who comes through the ranks. But with the loss of Gay and Eze, I just can't see them in the top half. In 12th, I've got Bournemouth. So yeah, it's also just on the bottom half of the table. They've had their defense ripped out. Huijsen's gone to Madrid. Kerkez has gone to Liverpool. And Zabani is in talks with PSG at the moment. That is a huge loss, ripping out your back line. Interesting that Semedo stayed at the club. I thought he would have got to move away, either to Newcastle or maybe to Spurs. So interesting to see if he can do what he did last year. But yeah, I can't see Bournemouth doing what they did last year with a whole new back line. Sorry, Bournemouth fans. And in 11th, I've got another club which I really like. In 11th position, I've got Brighton. Again, they've had a huge sale over the summer. Joao Pedro going from Brighton to Chelsea. He's already scored a couple of goals for them, and important goals in the Club World Cup final. But they do have a knack of unearthing amazing players. There is obviously talk about Baleba going to Man United as well. If they lose Baleba, they're going to get huge cash in. And Brighton just have that knack to be able to kind of lose a player and then bring another player in. We saw it with Casado, we saw it with Trossard, we saw it with McAllister, who go into Liverpool. Brighton's chief scout is probably the transfer that everyone should be trying to make. But yeah, unfortunately with Brighton, I can't see them making the top half of the season. I hope they do. I hope they surprise us and we see some new stars arising from the club. But yeah, Brighton in 11th. And in 10th, I've got Villa. So Villa finished last season in 6th position. They had a very good Champions League run. There's talk about Ramsey going to Newcastle, which is obviously good for me, and I'm really happy about that. It's interesting that it looks like they're going to be keeping Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rogers. I think Morgan Rogers is my favorite player in their team. Obviously, they had Asensio and Rashford, which try to help them out in the Champions League, but it just didn't pay off. They're struggling a little bit with PSR, which has meant that they're having to sell a couple of players. Not that many players coming in. They do have Gassan from Nice for 28 million, helping Ollie Watkins up front. But I feel for Aston Villa, I know this is quite a low prediction for them, but I think Unai Emery is going to struggle with the squad that he has. I think they've got to make a couple of more sales. Leon Bailey, there's rumors of him leaving as well. So yeah, just can't see where the spark's going to come from Villa. Obviously, they do have Europa League as well, which is going to stretch that squad. Which, as I'm saying, they're already having to sell a couple of players. So Villa, probably my predicted biggest underachievers for the season. In ninth position, I've got Nottingham Forest. Now, obviously, Nottingham Forest, they have obviously lost a couple of players. They did manage to keep Morgan Gibbs White, who has signed an extension to his contract. There was obviously Spurs were sniffing around him illegally. So interesting to see that he stayed. They have lost Alanga, which has come to Newcastle. I can't see Chris Wood doing what he did last year. I think teams will wise up to how they used to play on the counter attack. But let's not forget, their defense was absolutely outstanding last season, and they haven't sold any of their defense. They will have the Europa League to concentrate on as well. It'll be interesting to see how their squad copes with the demands of European football. But they've obviously benefited from Crystal Palace being kicked down to the Conference League. So they'll be playing a bit more tougher opposition this season in the Europa League. But I still think they'll do well enough to go top half, but not qualify for Europe. In eighth position, probably one of the teams I think that are going to overachieve this season. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is the new stadium. Number two is Jack Grealish. And number three is David Moyes. So I think David Moyes did well last season, kind of stabilized them, made sure they didn't go down. And now I think he's going to look to kick on. He's going to want to play attacking football and hard, aggressive football. I think their home record is going to be interesting to keep an eye on at their new stadium. Sometimes clubs battle to settle into their new environment and their new settings. But I think knowing Evertonians, that place is going to be rocking. And I can see David Moyes and Everton jumping up to 8th this season. In 7th, I've got Man United. So Man United, again, spend huge amounts of money in the summer. They've got a brand new front three in Brian and Bruno, Cunha, and obviously Sesko leading the line for them. They've been crying out for a number 9 for a couple of years now. I think Sesko is going to score 20 plus goals for them. Still got to make a couple of sales, I think, which will be interesting to see go through. You've got Garnacho, you've got Rasmus Højlund. Amarin does need to hit the ground running, but I think the Man United fans are going to question whether or not this is the right guy. But yeah, I think 7th for Man United, not bad considering where they were 15th last season. In 6th, I've got Tottenham Hotspur, and this is purely down to the Thomas Frank effect. Spurs obviously lost the UEFA Super Cup last night against PSG. They were leading 2-0 after 85 minutes, so I can't believe how they managed to let that one go. But PSG, obviously a quality side, and I think Thomas Frank will have learned a lot from his players. It was an overall good performance from Spurs. I think they've made some shrewd signings. As I mentioned earlier, Kudos on the wing. Son has obviously left the club as well. I do worry a little bit for Dominic Solanke. I think I'm not sure how he's going to fit into Thomas Frank's system. But all that being said, I think Thomas Frank, the way that they played yesterday, very aggressive, pressing on the front foot. But I think they're going to be very effective this season. So yeah, Spurs into 6th. And in 5th position is my club, Newcastle United. I think they're going to replicate what they did last season. Does this prediction hinge on Alexander Isak staying at the club? Yes, it does. I think if Newcastle can manage to keep Alexander Isak at the club and they can mend bridges, and he can mend bridges rather, I can see Newcastle repeating what they did last season and getting into the 5th position. I do think one of the things Newcastle have done pretty well this season is they've raised their floor. I think the replacements that have come in, Elanga on the right wing and Ramsey, hopefully in the central midfield, have been improvements on Longstaff, who's gone to Leeds, and Murphy on the right wing. So the big question, though, is where are our goals going to come from? Because at the moment we have 0 strikers at the club. So hopefully 5th position for Newcastle, but that is dependent on Alexander Isak staying at the club and banging goals like he did last season. In 4th position, I've got Arsenal. Arsenal have finished 2nd for the last 3 seasons in a row. I think that their moment has come and gone. Victor Gyökeres is a risk, I think, for me. £50 million. He's not an Arsenal type player. I think people expecting the guy to stand in the penalty box and just head the ball in or slot the ball in. That's not the way Arsenal play. I see Havertz actually having a better season than him, as long as he can stay fit. But yeah, a bit of a make or break season for Mikel Arteta. But I can see Arsenal dropping this season. Zubimendi is an exciting player to watch. He looks really, really good. I can see him pulling a lot of strings, and I think they needed cover for Odegaard, who kind of went off the boil in the second half of the last season. They've got a bit more strength in depth. I can see them doing well in Europe, though. I think Arteta now understands how to win, and obviously they made it all the way through to the semi-final last year, and I can see them going all the way through to the final this year in the Champions League. In 3rd position, I've got Manchester City. So I think this is going to be a season of transition for Pep Guardiola. Is this something he's not really done at his previous clubs at Barcelona or at Bayern? Obviously, it's going to be the first season without Kevin De Bruyne. They have gone and bought some good players. I think Reinders is a shrewd acquisition from AC Milan. He can be cover for Rodri, but he can also bomb on slightly from midfield. There is a lot of excitement about Ryan Cherky. How they managed to get him for £34 million, I don't know. Good cover at the left for Ryan Aït-Nouri from Wolves. They've needed a left wing for a while now. Guardiola was wasted there. He's much better as a centre back. A season of transition for Pep Guardiola, They still have these FFP charges up against them, which I think will be lingering in the background until we get some clarity. But yeah, I can see Man City coming third, but also having a strong European season as well. And in second position, I have Chelsea Football Club. In second position, runners up. And I think this will go to the last or the second last day of the season, is my prediction. I've got Chelsea. I think they're a bit more established at the back and in midfield. They've obviously got a lot of excitement up front in João Pedro and Liam Delap. There's a lot of people talking about Estevao as well, who they signed for Palmeiras for £29 million. But also don't forget about Jamie Gittins as well, who they got from Dortmund for £51.5 million. But they have also sold well. The interesting one is Noni Madueke to Arsenal for £51 million. I think that's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But I can see Chelsea pushing through this season. They're a lot more established. Their players have been together for a couple of years now. I think that midfield of Caicedo, Cole Palmer, and Enzo Fernandez is absolute class. I can see them finishing above Man City, but below who I think will be champions this season, and that is Liverpool. This is going to be a fascinating season to watch. Liverpool have changed a lot. They've changed almost their front line completely, bar Mo Salah, who had an outstanding season last year. They won so many games just by one goal last year. That was due to so many players coming off the bench and nicking a goal in the last 10 minutes. Is it going to work again for them this time? I think Slot doesn't want to do that. That's why he's gone and got Ekitike and Florian Wirtz. Florian Wirtz could be the next Eden Hazard, the next Kevin De Bruyne. Everyone is so excited to see what he's going to do. I think he's going to get 15 plus assists this season, and I think Ekitike will get 20 plus goals. At the time of this video, Isak is still not a Liverpool player. I don't think he's going to go to Liverpool, but if he does go to Liverpool, I think they will win the league with 5 games to go. But it's going to be an interesting one for Slot. There's a lot more expectation on him this season. No one expected Liverpool to win last season, with it being Slot's first season in the Premier League. There's my Premier League predictions for the upcoming 25-26 Premier League. Let me know in the comments what you think. Who do you think will be champions? Who do you think will qualify for Europe? And obviously, who's going to be fighting it out at the bottom to stay in the Premier League? As always, if you like what you're seeing, please give us a like and subscribe, and don't forget.
Here we go.